Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this podcast. With me today is former Illinois Teacher of the Year, Josh Stumpenhorst. Josh, it is awesome to have you today with us. Can you take a minute and just tell our audience who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Josh, and for 13 years, I was a sixth grade ELA and history teacher. And for the past 4 years, I'm a librarian, although in my district, we call it Learning Commons Director because we kind of wanted to encompass more than just the book. So we do a little bit of everything, run the arcade, run the wood shop, run the makerspace, all that stuff. So I get to have fun and talk about books with kids.
That's awesome, Josh. And first question I have for you, when we think about all the chaos that's happening in our world, what's something right now that gives you hope?
I think what gives me hope is just people. And I know that's such a lame answer, but it's so true. When I see the amount of people that are coming together to help their communities, and I'll share a quick story of something that I'm doing that brought me hope, but then kind of infused some more into me is I have two 3D printers that I was able to bring home from my makerspace, and I've been 3D printing face shields for local hospitals that don't have, face shields for our nurses and our doctors. And so the local paper did a little story, and the amount of people that have reached out to me to donate money, donate elastic, donate plastic. And then I had a third grader who's in our district who I don't know. He isn't one of my feeder schools. His mom sends me a message that I inspired him. He got a 3D printer for Christmas or something, and he's been printing straps that go on the back of your head for the face mask to kind of reduce that wear and tear on the ears. And he printed like 30 of them for his local hospital. So just the way that communities have come together to help each other gives me a lot of hope. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And thank you for giving back to those that are putting their lives on the line at this point, for sure. And thinking about the things that we're working through, talk to us a little about whether it's your school, your district, your community, some of the obstacles that are out there, and just be real with that. But then how are you all, or how the people that you're working with really working to overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, I think the tough thing is, and I don't think it's a secret, there's haves and have nots within our communities, within our organizations. And I have been very fearful of that divide getting bigger with access, whether it's internet access, whether it's access to parents, whether it's access to any sort of educated adult in the house. Those are real challenges that I think sometimes we take for granted. I'm in a school with a district, very low, free reduced lunch. We're very low, but we still have kids that cannot access the content we're sending home for so many reasons. I think of where I grew up as a rural town of 800 people. There's virtually no access, a lot of access to corn, but not a lot of access to technology. And so that's what worries me, but I like seeing the way our district has handled it. We've partnered with Comcast, with local places, and that's happening as a national level to get kids access. We're housing, or we're sending, meals to homes, like anything we can do to create safe spaces for kids. I am seeing that, but I think this is exposing a lot of our potential obstacles that I think we're still trying to figure it out. But I think the answer should make education better in the long run. But I still think we're kind of, wrestling with them.
Yeah, for sure. Which really leads me to the next question. It bleeds into that well around equity. At Future Ready Schools, equity is so core to our work. And you were just talking about the access. There's also equity and opportunity there as well. And we think about some of our most traditionally marginalized groups, or our most students most at risk. For me, it's what keeps me up at night at this point is our students that have come to us with trauma, and maybe we were that safe place as a school, and now they can't come to us. Or maybe our special ed students that have very severe needs that now it's put 100% on moms or dads. Or when you talk about the SES side of things, those real low incomes, whether it's that access and opportunity. What are you seeing either nationally across the board? Because I know you're very involved, you're very well known on a national level. What are you seeing from an equity end in terms of districts that are trying to really keep that in the front burner and make sure that all really does mean all, and really take care of some of our traditionally marginalized groups?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And I think the other side of that coin is also, for some kids, school was not the safe place. I think about our kids, whether they're transgender, whether they're, African American in a predominantly white school. I think there's that piece of it too that I always like to think about. But the kids that I worry the most about are, we do a suicide screener because our community does have a problem with suicide in our high schools. And I worry about those kids that were identified this fall. They're just kind of sent home, and in some places that's a safe space, some places it's not. And I've been very hopeful in hearing our counselors, our social workers, our psychs, our administrators are making phone calls, are contacting those kids as much as they can, as often as appropriate. Because in spite of all of the stuff that's going on, Illinois can be a hot mess politically, but one of the things I think they did really well was their e-learning plan, the recommendations is the number of times in that plan, the 62 or whatever pages, it is social emotional learning is first. That is your priority. We know kids are going to get behind in content, but if they are not in a safe space, that doesn't matter. Who cares about Algebra 1 if a kid isn't safe at home? And so I like seeing the way our district is reaching out to those families, reaching out to those kids, because that human connection is the most valuable part about what we do at school. So anything we can do to keep that going is going to be so important for all kids, but certainly for our marginalized populations.
Yeah, so well said on all fronts, and I appreciate that. Let's talk about fear for a moment. I found myself early on in this pandemic opening on my phone, pulling up a news app, scrolling through, and I realized like my blood was starting to boil, and I started to worry about my children and my family and my safety. And I found a way to say, I'm only going to do that maybe once a day, if at all.
Yeah.
Fear is real. And as an educational leader, like you're inundated with fear. It's all around us. It's everywhere outside of our homes. How do you deal with fear, and how are you personally working to overcome it?
Yeah, so I think it may just be the maturity level I have of working in a junior high for 17 years, but I try to use humor as much as I can. I'm tweeting out silly pictures of Bill Murray from, Groundhog Day. I'm, quarantine. What day is this? So I use humor a lot to lessen that, because I think if you go on social media, there's a lot of fear for sure in that space. So I try to do that, but I also try to not inundate, thinking about my own staff, because teachers are being just fire hosed with, hey, try this free e-learning resource, try this resource. And I think that increases the anxiety. So I'm trying to be very much a calming force. And for me personally, the best thing I do is I run every day. And that I found myself running more just because it's my time to get out of the house. I love my wife, I love my kids, but you need that time to yourself. And I do that every day. I have for a long time. And then I go on a lot of walks with my wife, just the two of us, like that kind of stuff. Just anything to decompress and deconnect, because I think right now, the great thing is we're so connected. And that's also the bad thing is, like you said, you're pulling up your phone and going, oh my gosh, I don't need to see the numbers from New York or Italy or wherever. Not that it's not important, but sometimes it can be overwhelmingly fearful.
So Josh, I got to ask, because I do follow your running, and when you say you've been running every day for a long time, that's an understatement. How many days have you been running, and have you run yet today? That's what I need to know.
Yes, I ran a 5K this morning before I hopped on this. So I'm over 3,000 days. I started back in January of 2012. So my 3,000th day was last Monday, and I ran a 19 miler just for COVID-19.
Wow, that's awesome. Let me ask you about that, because, to me, there's such a parallel between that and educational leadership in dedication, overcoming adversity. I'm sure even as 3,000 days, there's been days you haven't been feeling well. Like, what is it that drives you? I'll be real. I am not a runner. And when I look at that, I'm like, if I had 3 days, I'd be really proud of myself right now. No less 3,000. So like, what is it that forces to drive you? Because I think that innate, whatever it is that you have, really parallels educational leaders, where they keep going in the midst of adversity. Like, what is that for you?
I think it started almost as a dare. Like, hey, do you think you could do this? Kind of right around where, people were doing the photo a day on Instagram or any of that kind of stuff. And it started with kind of a challenge for my wife. And then it gets to the point where it becomes part of who you are. And it's just a routine. And for me, that's one of those things. It's my time to meditate. It's my time to think. It's my time to be out there, get the endorphins going. And to compare it to leadership, I think you look at, building principals, superintendents, whatever it is, it just becomes who they are. The taking care of kids on a daily basis, the decisions we make, to get up and do something, to get up and support kids or get up and go for a run. Like, it just becomes just embedded in who I am. And I wouldn't even know what to do if I got up and said, I'm not going to go for a run today. I'd be like, what does that even feel like? I don't even know at this point.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're hitting the point where you're not going to say like, nah, let's break the 3,000 mark streak today. Like, I guess now it's so ingrained in what you do. So well said. So 2 final questions for you. One is, there is so much to be proud of. When I look at social media and I see the incredible things that educators are doing literally around the world, What is something that when you look at your staff, your team, your district, that you let's sit back and you say, you know what, I am really proud of that. Give me something that you're proud of.
Yeah, I think I'm just proud of the teachers. When I look at, I have one, and I won't name her because she'd probably be super embarrassed, but she's not very tech savvy. She is, sometimes easily flustered with change. And to see her just tackle this, and I text her regularly, I'm texting my more anxious teachers on a more regular basis, say, hey, how are things going? How can I help? And just to see the way some of our teachers have just taken it and ran with it. And I was talking to a good friend yesterday, and he's like, I'm not doing 42 Zoom meetings with kids. I'm just making myself available to them to say, hey, what do you need? And if it's just to sit here and show me a puppy on the Zoom meeting, then that's what you need, and that's what I'm going to provide for you. So just to see the shift, and I always valued it, but I see it more now than ever, that shift to let's worry about the kids. Let's worry about the kids and ourselves, and the content. We're going to get through what we can get through, but let's prioritize the people.
Yeah, so well said. Prioritize the people right there. Couldn't say it any better for myself. Last question for you. Educators are all across the board in terms of their comfort level. I know you well enough to know you're somebody that will jump right in. You're somebody that will work to overcome fear. We know not all educators feel that way. Some are probably paralyzed by fear right now, but also in the same sense, some are off and running, like you were saying with your colleague there. What's a piece of advice you have, no matter where the educators are on the spectrum right now in terms of their comfort level with what they're being asked to do? What's a piece of advice you have for them?
I think my piece of advice would be to talk to the kids. I think that there's sometimes we put these expectations on ourselves, and we see, and I think social media breeds that we see all these great things all these folks are doing here or over here, and we feel like we've got to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And what I found is when teachers just reach out to the kids are going to say, you know what, we're busy, or yes, we want to see you, we want to have a Zoom hangout or whatever it is. But that's my answer, whether we're in a pandemic or not. Talk to the kids, see what they need, and do what you can for them, because you'd be surprised how scared some of them are, how uncomfortable they are in the video conferencing. So I think just doing that and connecting with the kids, you'll be in good shape.
Prioritizing people, prioritizing our kids, doesn't get any better than that. Josh Stumpenhorst, thanks for joining us, our friend.
All right, thanks for having me, Tom.